Wednesday, March 13th on the Just Baseball Show, and we are doing an X Factor for each team in the American League East and the National League East. Jack, Peter, Just Baseball Show, presented as always by BetMGM. Peter's going to give you the whole spiel in a moment, but it's like the children's book, Peter and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day with Gerrit Cole undergoing an MRI and Aaron Boone saying it's, quote, difficult to envision a scenario where he's ready for opening day. So just when you get amped up for Yankees baseball, Mick Abel strikes out Juan Soto and Gerrit Cole gets hurt. Save the MGM thing. Just like take me into your brain, take me into your heart, take me into your gut right now as Yankee fan Peter Apple.
I opened the stupid Twitter app.
Yeah, that app sucks.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, it sucks on days like these where a report goes out that Gerrit Cole is. Uh, I mean, this is just horrible. I mean, this is just horrible. I opened that stupid app and it says Gerrit Cole has not been recovering after starts like the Yankees would like him to, like Gerrit Cole would like himself to.
Yeah.
And then he has to get an MRI because of an elbow. And how many times on this podcast did we report there's an MRI on an elbow? And how many weeks later do we then confirm the report and say it's Tommy John? This is a nightmare. This is a nightmare.
I
That's
don't want
how
to
my
do.
Yankee
Yeah,
feeling is, that the season is already over.
I don't want to do that yet. It does feel very.
Obviously not. You
No, I
asked
know.
my gut.
I
I,
know.
I gave you the full, that ain't journalism, that's just straight up feelings, and it sucks. And
It
it's
does.
March 13th.
It sucks. And honestly, it sucks for non-Yankee fans too, and it may suck for Yankee haters. I never root on injuries. I don't care how brutal of a fan you are. I wouldn't call what you do a fan if you root for injuries on your least favorite team. But I do think that this like stinks for Yankee haters too that want to see him flounder because you want to see them flounder at full strength. Now they're without the best pitcher on the planet. As a baseball fan, I'm very upset that we are not going to get to see the poster boy of durability make his 32 starts in 2024. It feels like the first time in forever that he hasn't made 32 starts. And I don't have the baseball reference page in front of me, but I guarantee you, like, this guy was on the mound all the freaking time. Very Jose Barrios, right? Cole is the durable, great pitcher in baseball. And now all of a sudden, we see it again. We see the UCL. This is an epidemic, and it struck the best pitcher in the game.
Talk to me friend to friend, because you just gave, a great little speech about the journalism side, right?
Yeah.
It makes sense. It sounds good out of
So
your mouth.
let me
Friend
give
to
you this.
friend, your feelings.
Let me give you this real quick. 2014, Gerrit Cole. All right, 2013, he makes his debut. 19 starts after he started the year in AAA. 22 starts in 2014. After that, 32 starts in 15. 21 starts in 16. It was a little banged up. 33 starts in 17. 32 starts in 18. 33 starts in 19. 12 starts, which I think was the most in baseball in 2020. 30 starts in 2021. 33 in 22. 33 in 23. This guy hasn't missed time in his life. And
Okay.
now we're going to
Okay.
see this. Sorry.
Friend
I
to
just had to
friend.
I had to
I
give you the numbers.
I
Now friend,
know, but I even hate hearing the numbers, because it's like, well, now he's due for one. Like,
yeah.
don't read me the numbers.
That's
Friend to
what
friend,
sucks.
you
Yeah.
hear Gerrit Cole, MRI, elbow on Twitter, your initial gut reaction right now.
In terms of a U lens or in terms of a baseball lens?
In terms of a baseball lens, like,
Like
obviously,
what?
I'm freaking out and it makes no sense, but
Right.
you on the outside looking in, do you think it's going to be okay? Or did you also get a
No,
deep,
it was
heart dropping type feel?
yeah, it was total doomsday.
Uh,
It was total doomsday, and I was pissed and I was sad because listen, I will watch almost every Gerrit Cole start. I will watch every Gerrit Cole start that I can. He is the gold standard of pitching in Major League Baseball. There's a reason he was our best pitcher in baseball heading into the 2024 season. on the mound all the time. But not only that, he dots 100 on the lower outside corner, and then he follows it with a crazy diabolical knuckle curve. Like he is so much fun to watch, and we take him for granted. And so much of my frustration with the Yankee fan base is I feel like they take the best pitcher in the world for granted, and that's what I mentioned to you. Um, I think when I first saw it, I felt cheated of what we could see the Yankees do this year. I was like, they just depleted their pitching reserves for Juan Soto. And now you got to tap into something that's not there.
I guess there's somewhat of a bright side from this, I guess. And it's just a rumor. It's
Beater
just all
Beater's going to make the rotation.
yes, maybe, but it's more of they've re-engaged the White Sox, according to sources.
Bob Nightingale.
Yeah, Bob Nightingale. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm using according to sources that it's just a Bob Nightingale tweet, which I hope is true. They re-engaged the White Sox
I will say
for Cease.
Beater looked really good on Monday in Clearwater. Really
Uh,
good.
did he
He
look as good as
matched
Gerrit
Cleveland.
Cole? Did he look as
No,
good as
he's
Gerrit
not
Cole
Gerrit
did
Cole.
last? Okay, well
Nobody's Gerrit
then
Cole.
what are we talking about?
I'm just saying if Beater is forced into a five and dive situation, he's a fine option for the
Awesome.
Yankees.
I hope we win 83 games this year with Clayton Beater giving us five and dives.
I mean, there
No,
are
I know.
two there are two starting pitchers that are still on the market that apparently were looking for $200 million.
Yeah, but what won the Cy Young? I would like him now.
You want the Cy Young winner?
I would like him. I would appreciate his services.
So I do want to just kind of transition immediately into the X Factor thing because I want to start with the Yankees.
Well, can
Because
we talk about how Judge is also banged up and he's
so
going to be taking some off days and the way Boone it kind of pissed me off when the report first came out. Boone made it seem like it was absolutely no big deal. Of course he's supposed to only get two ABs. That was the report. Right? They're just resting him getting ready to go and then a day later, oh, he's banged up. It's not an
I saw
oblique
beat up.
thing according to Judge, but it's still something. It's just the season hasn't started yet.
I,
The
I
Yankees.
saw I know. I saw mid-spring beat up. That was the report that I read about Aaron
What the
Judge.
hell does that mean? And I
Nobody
guess
gets
so.
beaten up
He
in
is,
spring training.
Aaron Judge said he's been swinging basically every single day since the season ended to get ready for this season. So through that time, he's been working on himself. And when you work on yourself for that long, I guess you can feel beat up. I don't know if that's his normal training regimen before the season where he's swinging constantly before the season starts, but it all sounds horrible. The fact that we're getting reports that a guy's beat up in spring training games when he's not even playing a full game
Yeah.
makes me want to tear my hair out of my head.
Well, and it's not even like it's DJ LeMahieu or Kyle Higashioka. I know Padre, but it's not even like it's Kyle Higashioka. It's arguably the second best player in baseball this year, maybe third best player in baseball. Like it's a tough one, man, and it's a tough pill to swallow. I didn't know being beat up in spring training was a thing, and frankly, I don't think it is. I'm not concerned about Judge. It sounds like the timeline is fine for opening day. And frankly, opening day is like all I care about, really. If you're good to go for opening day, it's fine. Cole, I am very worried. But Gerrit Cole's absence, who knows how long, takes me immediately into my first X factor here. And the premise of what we're doing is this. We are going to go through. So we're going to do the AL East and the NL East today. We're going to do the AL and NL Central on Friday and then AL NL West on Monday. And we are going to pick one X factor each team. There is no communication going into this between us. So if we have the same guy, it just furthers our point even more. And we're going to lay out why we think they're the X factor. I'm not going to run you through this guy's numbers in 2023 or like, hey, his last 3 years, what do they look like? I'm just going to tell you situationally why I feel like they are the biggest X factor. And the biggest X factor for me for the Yankees, I think, especially now with the Cole news, is the biggest X factor in all of baseball. Carlos Rodon needs to be way, way, way better than he was in 23. If the Yankees get the guy they paid over $150 million to, if they get 2022 Carlos Rodon, I'm still concerned with the absence of Cole, but I'm far less concerned because they have an ace. The idea of signing Rodon was co-aces. Last year, that guy wasn't the sixth best starting pitching option that the Yankees could turn to. Cole is the biggest X factor in baseball. Or
Yeah.
sorry, Rodon is the biggest X factor in baseball.
Yeah, it was funny. I was on the phone with my dad, who is an enormous, enormous Yankee fan. And what we've been talking about basically all off season is how big Carlos Rodon has to be this season for the Yankees to make it far, right? Let's say Gerrit Cole is totally fine, which I doubt he is, but let's say in a perfect world, the MRI comes back clean. He's just a little bit beat up and he'll be totally fine. Carlos Rodon still is the X factor. Maybe he's not now the biggest X factor in the sport. And if Cole goes down, that's exactly the option. The Yankees finished 18th in ERA the staff last year. The pitching hasn't been the biggest issue for the Yankees in the last half decade. I think it's been mostly the offense, a lot of guys getting banged up. So I tried to pick an offensive player just to be kind of different than Carlos
Yeah.
Rodon. But what am I going to say? Is DJ LeMahieu like the mega X factor here? Is Anthony Rizzo the mega X factor here? Gleyber Torres, like we know what Judge and Soto are going to do. So it has to be a pitcher. And Carlos Rodon just has so much more upside than a guy like Nestor Cortez Jr. So if he can achieve that upside, the Yankees are so much better of a team. But if he doesn't and he looks like the 23 version, the Yankees are destined for mediocrity once again.
I think you could make a case for Stanton being an X factor and just being available. And
Definitely.
if Stanton is a 40 homer guy, that changes the dynamic of that lineup entirely.
But
But
here's why
like
I'm sick of it. Here's why I'm sick of it is because every offseason it's about how good Giancarlo Stanton
it's
looks.
Stanton, it's
And then
always,
he's hitting 190 and
yeah.
striking out 30% of the time. I mean, that is last year, but it's just gotten progressively worse. I don't think Yankee fans should believe what they hear every offseason and how good his body looks, and then just to see him perform like he normally does in the regular season. I'm, of course, hoping that he bounces back. It would be enormous if he did, but it's much more likely that Rodon had an off year, bounces back to what he is, rather than Giancarlo Stanton just finding what he had in Miami when he hit 59 home runs. That
That's
season
gone.
so
That's gone.
gone, so gone away. So what are we even hoping for Stanton? That he can play DH and hit 30 home runs? I think there's a decent chance that the Yankees are trying to cut bait at the end of the year with him. Obviously, they can't with the salary,
Yeah.
but it's like if he continues to do this in the lineup, he can't field, he can't run. And if he's not hitting for power, what is he even doing in the lineup at all?
Yeah. I hear you. I still think that you can dream on, I don't want to say 40. I think you can dream on 35 with Stanton still.
Sure.
Sure. But even then, right, how big of a difference does that make? I do think the argument could somehow be made for Volpe being an X factor. I just
Definitely.
expect Volpe to tick up big time this year. And Rodon needs to have a more night and day transformation than Volpe does.
Yeah, the Yankees are a big boomer bust team. Like there's a lot of guys where you think to yourself, man, if he has a great year, this team can win the World Series.
Yeah.
Right? You look up and down the roster, only a few years ago, these guys were all at the top of their game. So if they
Yeah.
can refine something, there's a lot of guys, but it has to be Rodon. Because if
Yep.
Rodon can look like he did on the Giants, because I don't even blame Cashman for that deal. And maybe that's
No,
my fault because I would have given him a similar type deal.
he hit the market at the right time. Like he had an excellent contract year.
And like Gosman was found his stuff in San Francisco, then goes to the Blue Jays and becomes one of the best pitchers in Major League
For sure.
Baseball. Right? There's a pipeline there. Maybe Rodon found something in San Francisco, goes over to the Yankees, big time deal, and everything just falls apart.
And the thing is, he was actually coming off of back-to-back years where he was really good. He finished, I think, top five in Cy Young voting in 2021. He just didn't have the innings. He tapered off at the end of the year. But he put together back-to-back years before he hit the open market again, where he was really, really good. So I get it. I want to jump to the Boston Red Sox here. I went a little bit off the beaten path, I guess. I think Tristan Casas might be a layup answer. I went elsewhere because I expect Casas to be really good. I expect Casas to factor in to the foreseeable future of the Boston Red Sox with a Brian Bayo, who they just extended with a huge money Rafi Devers. Trevor Story's there for better or worse. Masataka Yoshida is there for better or worse. I'm looking at a guy like Ceddanne Rafaela. If Rafaela is playing an elite center field, which we think he can do, I think Aram has a 75 grade field tool on him. If he's playing an elite center field at Fenway, can handle that triangle and can hit just enough, can show the power, can show the wheels, he's not going to walk, but who cares? If he looks like a good 6 or 7 hitter, I'm very happy with what I have moving forward.
I think that's a good one. I stuck with the offense as well, even though I think that Nick Pivetta could definitely be an X factor for the Red Sox, right? You already know that you have Brian Bayo, and I think Red Sox fans who watch Major League Baseball kind of know what they're going to get from Brian Bayo. He's not a number one, but I think he could potentially have the upside of a two, but he's probably more of a three. I
Did,
think he's
did you
just a,
listen to did you listen to Arm in my conversation about Bayo
I
and
did
the
not.
extent?
I've not.
So that's what we were saying. It's like they paid him to be a consistent three or maybe like a top end four. They didn't pay him to be a two, and
No, and
he's not a two.
I think that's what he is. And that's a solid pitcher to have, right? A
Yes.
young guy with the potential of being a two, but is probably a three. Those guys don't just grow on trees.
No.
And I think Cutter Crawford at this point, Red Sox fans can rely on and is a solid starter. I think he's probably a step below Brian Bayo. I think he has good stuff. You know, Garrett Whitlock, Tanner Houck, you know, both of
It's
those guys could
finicky. They're
potentially be X
volatile.
factors. There's a
Yeah.
lot of X factors in the Red Sox rotation, but the reason I brought up Nick Pivetta is I think he really found something. And I think if you asked like who would be the guys who could potentially strike out 200 guys, I think Nick Pivetta is in that conversation. The strikeout rate in the second half was among the elite pitchers in Major League Baseball. The stuff looked so much better than it was. I think he found something. But the X factor that I'm choosing for the Red Sox, Trevor Story. I mean, if Trevor Story, right, by Fangraphs, he is projected to have 22 home runs and 23 stolen bases. If he can be a 2020 guy again for the Red Sox, it shores up a position that they invested a lot of money into and have seen almost no production. And
Right.
Trevor Story has been banged up. He's been kind of thrown to the side. It's been a couple of years removed from really elite production, and even in Coors, people are like, is he a Coors merchant? Is he not? And a lot of the people who said he might be a Coors merchant might have been proved right in the early goings. But Trevor Story at 31 years old can rewrite the wrongs. Am I saying that Trevor Story is going to be a 25-25 guy?
No.
No. But I'm saying if he is, that is a major X factor for the Red Sox.
I like that pick because I have no idea what this version of Trevor Story looks like.
Nobody has any idea.
He's a
That's the thing.
mystery
Red
man.
Sox fans don't, right? We know Trevor Story is good, but he just has not been available. And when he has been available, it looks like he's hampered by injuries. So if
Yes.
you're telling me that a healthy Trevor Story is on the field opening day,
Yes.
kind of with this fresh start, no real big expectations anymore. Of course, he's paid to have big expectations, but I think that hype has kind of fallen, right? He's nowhere near our top 10 shortstops list. We
No.
didn't even consider him in the honorable mentions, right? So a guy like that who has the potential and has been a top five shortstop at times, a couple years removed from that, I think is an enormous X factor for the Red Sox.
I really like that pick. Okay, so I went Rafaela, you went Story. With the Yankees, we both went Rodon. Let's jump to the Baltimore Orioles here. And the Orioles, I think, can slice the offense any which way, and it's going to work. Kobe Mayo looks like he's ready right now. Is Mayo going to be in the opening day lineup? I don't think so.
He
They
could. I mean, if
he
they
could.
wanted to, he could.
He
Like
could
it's
he would be the five hitter on a billion other teams, but he might be in Norfolk to open the year. Colton Cowser is having an out of body experience this month. That guy might be the fourth outfielder. Where's the space for him in the outfield on opening day? Westberg, Mountcastle O'Hearn. There are so many different ways that you can slice the offense, and it still looks hot as hell. So I go to the rotation, and I'm not going to key in on Bradish because I think Bradish is just going to try and spin opponents to death again. It worked at a
if
sub 3 ERA last
if
year
he pitches.
if he pitches. So I'm not going to factor in health to my X Factor pick. Burns is Burns. He's the ace. If he falters, he falters. If he doesn't, that's what we expect. Grayson Rodriguez is my X Factor, the guy that was just on the show last week. I left listening to that conversation that you guys had with G Rod very excited to see what he can do this year. And frankly, after the All-Star break, he got me super excited for what he can be this year. And in the spring, any videos that I've seen, I saw that home plate view in that bullpen, and I was like, you look amazing right now. But it was a tale of two G Rods last year. Before the All-Star break, very well documented, a 7.5 ERA. ERA dropped from 7.5 to 2.5. But the number I want to pinpoint is the long ball. 45 and a third innings. His first 45 and a third innings of his major league career. How many home runs do you think he allowed?
A lot.
13 in
Yeah.
45 and a third. That's pretty much a homer every 3 innings. That's two homers a start if you go six. After that, 76 and two-thirds innings after the All-Star break. How many homers did he allow?
4.
Three.
Mm.
How does that happen? A change. That's how it happens. A change in Norfolk. He worked on shit. He came back. He was awesome. If we get that second half G Rod, the sky is the limit and a trophy is the limit for the Baltimore Orioles this year.
It's so funny. After the conversation with Grayson Rodriguez and then going into X Factors for the Orioles, I thought Grayson was too easy. That's how That's how much he proved to me in that conversation that I think he's going to be great. And in the second half, he was one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. So I just decided, of course, he's the X factor. So I get why that's your answer, but I just went a different route. And I was
So I
looking
was
at
lazy. I was
no,
lazy, is what you're saying.
not at all. I was just
Oh, bro, I got to take a
actually,
lap.
you know what?
I
Yeah,
got to,
you were
yeah,
lazy. That's
I got to do
answer.
better.
I'm gonna give you a better answer. Um, I was trying to find what were the Orioles' weaknesses last year. Now, they didn't really have many because they won 101 games, but every team has something that they aren't elite in if they are an elite team, right? No
Right,
team is perfect.
right.
So I looked at an Orioles team that finished 17th in home runs last year. And I thought to myself, why is that? Well, I look at Adley, probably 20 home runs, right? Gunnar hit 28 last year, but is he like a 40 home run guy? No.
I think he can hit 30 this year.
I mean, he might be able to hit 30.
Yeah.
But Anthony Santander, like you go through the roster and you think, okay, Gunnar might lead the team with 30, right? Well, how about a guy who can genuinely hit 40? I think Ryan Mountcastle is an enormous X factor for the Orioles. I truly think the Orioles need a thumper, right? I don't care if you strike out a lot because the rest of the lineup is barely going to strike out, tons of doubles, balls in play. You need a guy when there's runners on first and second and 2 outs, or
To
there's
hit the
runners
three-ring home
to
run.
hit the 3-run home run. And that is Ryan Mountcastle to a T. The issue with Ryan Mountcastle is he hasn't been all that healthy, right? In 2021, fully healthy, hit 33 jacks in 144 games. In 2022, he played 145 games, but he didn't look quite like himself, and you saw kind of a power downgrade. And then last year, he did play 115 games, not fully healthy, with 18 home runs. If this guy can be a 35 home run threat, I think that makes the Orioles lineup a lot more dynamic, and I know that he has it in him. A 27-year-old. The problem is that the Orioles moved back left field in Camden Yards about 20 feet, so it's going to be harder for him to accomplish it and put up those gaudy power numbers. But he has the ability where if you move the fence back 50 feet, it wouldn't matter. He can hit piss missiles. So Ryan Mountcastle is the guy I'm IDing for the Orioles, where if he can provide that thump, the Orioles have one of the best lineups in the bigs. But he's not like Grayson is the better answer, I guess, for X Factor because it's like, do I think Grayson turns into an ace or do I think Mountcastle it's 40? Grayson by like a good amount. But
Right.
that's why I went to an X Factor because if he can do that, how the hell are you going to compete with this Orioles lineup?
I really like that pick. There may not be a more drastic splits guy in Major League Baseball. I think Jock is up there. Whenever you think splits guy, you immediately go to Jock Peterson.
Yeah.
Might I point you in the direction of Ryan Mountcastle?
Yeah.
Against right-handed pitching last year, 280 at-bats, hit 235 with a 640 OPS, 140 at-bats against lefties. hit 340 with a 1053 OPS. He was 400 points better in the OPS department against left-handed pitching. He had double the homers in half the at-bats against left-handed pitching. 140 at-bats against lefties, 12 of his 18 home runs, 6 in 280 ABs against right-handed pitching.
But that's not something that's long standing with him. That was kind of just last year, right? We look at 2022. He had a 741 OPS against righties, 693 against lefties. We go back even to 2021, better against lefties, put up an 843 OPS, but 770 against righties. This isn't a guy who just can't hit righties. It was last year where he couldn't hit a righty to save his life. I hope that doesn't compound and that just is his thing.
Yes, the struggles against right-handed pitching was unique to last year, but he's always been a lefty master. You look at his career numbers, 40 points better in his career against lefties as opposed to righties. So he's a 280 hitter compared to a 250 hitter against righties. And then OPS jumps 100 points. So he's an 850 career OPS guy against lefties, a 750 career OPS guy against righties.
So what do you think the Orioles should do, right? We saw them last year use Ryan O'Hearn a lot because they're mostly kind of doing a platoon over there, right? Ryan Mountcastle against lefties. Of course, he'll play some DH. And then Ryan O'Hearn against righties. Is that just what it's going to be? Because I think if we just run Ryan Mountcastle out, but to Ryan O'Hearn's credit, he's one of the prettiest sweepers, making picks out of the dirt at first base. That matters to Peter Vision. It's not a stat anybody else cares about, but to me, sex appeal. He's pretty smooth over there at first. Does that matter to you?
It does. It matters. It matters a great deal to me.
Good.
I will say we've gone this entire time without mentioning Heston Kjerstad, which is
it's
brutal.
another one of these guys.
I know, which is why there's no offensive piece for me that's an X factor.
That's fair. I looked at a area of concern, thinking to myself, yeah, the Orioles don't really have that Jorge Soler type, right? Or just a masher of baseballs where, oh, good, he's coming up with runners in scoring position. All right, he might strike out, but he also might change the game with a home run here. They have a bunch of guys who can hit 30, but if one guy could hit 40, it's Mountcastle. And if he does hit 40, good luck with the Orioles.
Yeah, 100%. All right, moving to Toronto. We got two more teams in the AL East, then we got the NL East after a quick break. But the Toronto Blue Jays, there are a lot of ways you can go. Vladdy just has to be better. Dalton Varsho, I'm rooting for really hard. I don't think a great Varsho transforms this Blue Jays team.
Had the same thought. I wrote down Dalton Varsho and I changed mine because I'm like, all right, if he puts up the 4.8 season in terms of FWAR that he did with Arizona, are the Blue Jays now winning the division? Probably not.
No.
But I do think he's going to be better. I don't want that understated. I think you and I both agree. We think Dalton Varsho is not going to be this pull side ground ball merchant that he's been.
No, so there are some guys in Major League Baseball that I just consistently have this inherent bias.
Of course they're going to be good.
Yeah, of course you're going to be great. Dylan Carlson, of course you're going to get out of this funk.
Oh, and then all of a sudden he's the fourth out. That's what I keep saying he's like a 120 WRC plus guy.
Right, and then he's not.
He never was. But I feel like he is. So that's the narrative I'm pushing.
Carlson, for me, I still think Jake Myers can somehow make this shit work. But Dalton Varsho is probably in there too. And they're all kind of the same guy when you think about it. I will say I went to pitching again. It's hard for me. This division in particular, in the NL East, I really don't have a pitcher. But here, I think pitching is a big deal. Jose Barrios was so bad in 22. Then he was good in 23.
He's your X factor?
I think if you have a top two that can contend with anybody in that division, the Blue Jays have a fighting chance.
I'm going to give you a real one.
Okay.
Bowden Francis.
Bowden
Francis. Are you sure it's Bowden? I was watching highlights on YouTube and the announcer says Bowden Francis. You have to check that.
Bowden, holy
shit. Look at that. Ladies and gentlemen of the Just Baseball Show, the ball knower just turned into a wordsmith. Suck it, Jack. This is a huge moment for me. All right. I want to thank my parents
Yeah.
because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have gone to Syracuse University. I wouldn't have learned all of these incredible words, how to pronounce stuff. And it's
Yeah.
crazy. I just surpassed Jack in this. And I want to thank the listeners of the Just Baseball Show. This is a big moment for me. Bowden Francis, Jack. I mean, go back to the dictionary, bud.
That's crazy because I saw him in Buffalo last year, and I swear to God it was Bowden.
Well, it's Bowden.
It's
And
Bowden.
Chris
And Peter
Bassett.
wins.
Listen to this quote from Chris Bassett. If Ricky or Francis, Ricky Tiedemann, Bowden, Francis, needs to start for us this year and they became our number one, I don't think anyone would be shocked. As crazy as that is, that's how good of stuff they have. That's how mature they are. And I saw that and I was like, what the hell is Chris Bassett smoking? Ricky Tiedemann, I get it. He's a top prospect. He added 15 pounds this offseason.
Yeah.
He's weighing in at 240. The stuff, 99 miles an hour. Disgusting breaking balls. One of the best pitching prospects in baseball. And Bowden Francis? What's going on here? So I looked into him a little bit. I kind of like him. He's 94 to 95, and he's seen a little bit of an uptick in spring training. The curveball generated a 36% whiff rate, which is fantastic. And a lot of his pitches performed really well. Now, last year, he was mostly working out of the bullpen, right? He was a little bit of a swingman type, would get some innings late in games, wasn't much of a impact player for the Blue Jays. Really not much at all. But he did put up an ERA below 2, right? Peripherals, they're pointing more to the 3.5s. It's fine. We don't have a ton of data on him. But when I
Yeah.
was watching him, I was looking at a guy who looks like he can place the fastball where he wants with a good amount of ride at 94, 95, a really good curveball, and a developing slider. And I'm thinking to myself, if he adds a fourth pitch or he really defines that slider this year, this is a guy who I think can be an impact pitcher for the Blue Jays. And when I look at the Blue Jays rotation, it's filled with non-X factors, in my opinion. Like, I think all of them are just going to do exactly what they've been doing for the last 30 years. Like, Kevin Gausman is just going to do what he does every single year. Barrios, I think 2022 was just his kind of down year, right? He was great with the Twins, struggled initially with the Blue Jays, settles in, kind of like what we think Varsho is going to do. I look at a guy like Chris Bassett. Like Chris Bassett's just going to throw 90-mile-an-hour like sinker cutters for the next 40 years. I think it's just that's what he's going to do, and he's going to be fine for 200 innings. And
Right.
Yusei Kikuchi, I think, was kind of last year's X factor, and I think at this point, what, 4.3 ERA and 160 innings for Kikuchi, maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little bit lower. I think that's fair. I think we know what we're going to get, but what are we going to get from the 5 spot in their rotation? Alek Manoah has been sent to the moon, basically. Yariel Rodriguez is dealing with a back issue. He's not even going to start in this rotation to start the year. I don't know what their plan is with him. So they need a 5 starter. And Bowden, not Bowden, Bowden Francis could be the guy. I'm not saying he's going to win the Cy Young, and I am saying that Chris Bassett, I want to be introduced to his dealer because to put him in number one stuff, I don't know about that, but I like the confidence. I do. Sometimes you need a little bit of rational confidence to give to a rookie like Bowden Francis. I like this guy. I think
That's a
I might be a
way
little bit in.
that's a way better pick than Barrios.
Way
That's
better, not even
that's the pick
close.
of the show. We haven't done the NL East, and that's the pick of the show. I didn't even know how to say his freaking name. I was
I,
saying it wrong last year.
I've been on a heater. You've said a lot of my picks are good picks, and I beat you in a wordsmith competition. This is
Yeah.
a big day for me.
Is it always a competition?
Well, it wasn't a competition. It's kind of like, is it a competition between like Duke and Arkansas State? Like
And
you're
I'm
Duke, I
Arkansas.
was Arkansas State. Like I just pulled the upset, but I
I
had to
thought I
rush
was
the
Arkansas
floor.
State.
No, no, no. You're in terms of wordsmithing. Yeah, I'm Arkansas
I'm
State.
Duke.
You're Duke, 100%.
Dude, I don't
So
want to be like Filipowski. He's just
like I just ran the court. I just rushed the floor. I mean, this is my Super Bowl.
I'll take it, but I don't cry like Duke. I'll say I'm
What do you
Purdue.
want to be?
How about that?
Oh,
Purdue. And
always a first round exit. You're
and you're
you're a
fairly kidding.
fraud. I mean, you
I
want to
am
be a
a fraud.
fraud?
Everybody that listens already knows that. We're not breaking any new news.
Right, fine. You're
Okay.
Purdue. You're Zach Edey.
That's fine. I'm Matt Painter, man. Purdue, you're Fairleigh Dickinson. I'm Purdue.
All right.
Okay. Wrapping up the AL East with the Tampa Bay Rays. I'm gonna cheat.
Ooh.
Two, Taj Bradley, Ryan Pepio.
Yeah.
That duo, they need starting pitching so bad. So bad. Which one did you choose? I feel like you chose one.
I think you know which one I choose.
Pepio.
Pepio. I'm just so high on him. I remember when the last year in the second half of the season, you could never find value on the Dodgers ever. I mean, they're the Dodgers, right? In terms of betting markets. Also,
Yeah.
shout out BetMGM, Code Just Baseball.
Yes.
You can never find value. But the one pitcher that was always reasonably priced by the Dodgers standards was Ryan Pepio. So that's when I was betting on the Dodgers a lot. But then in the second half with the Dodgers, this guy cuts down the walks almost completely, right? We're looking at in 2023 with the Dodgers, he had 5 walks to 38 strikeouts. In
Mhm.
2022, he had 42 strikeouts and 27 walks. So the fact is, if he can find this and this command is real, it's kind of like when we talk about Joe Boyle with the Athletics.
Right.
Tons of stuff. If he can figure out how to throw it in the strike zone, he's going to be disgusting. I view Pepiot in a similar manner. Now, Joe Boyle, I think, has more command concerns, but possibly better stuff, or at least
Way
more
better.
high octane
Not possible.
velocity.
Right.
Exactly. But in terms of just stuff that's moving all over the place, Pepiot has it. And especially why I think he's the X factor a little bit over Taj Bradley is the Rays already had Taj Bradley last year. He's already kind of made a little bit of an impact with the Rays. He's kind of on
Mhm.
this progression with them, while Pepiot is the guy that they got for Tyler Glass now. So it's more important just for the, you know, look
The
from
optics.
fans, right? The
Right.
optics exactly is a perfect word. That's why you're Purdue. I'm
There's
Fairleigh
Purdue,
Dickinson.
man.
Yeah, the optics of it is super important for the Rays as well. And I think he's going to be dominant. I think outside of Zach Eflin, we're going to look back and say Ryan Pepiot is the number 2 in this rotation.
I wonder how Savali's going to do. I've got questions about Savali,
I think he's
but
going to be great.
there's way more volatility with what Pepio and Bradley can put out for Tampa. You hit everything that I wanted to hit with Ryan Pepio. The thing that jumps out is, and he's not Joe Boyle stuff over command because Boyle's like 101, 102. Pepio was amazing changeup, Gavin Stone level changeup, where the changeup was a big league pitch when he was in high A, double A. And he gets there and he was so not confident in 2022, but he shows up. He thinned out big time in 2023. And you mentioned the walk numbers. He cut the walk rate from 17% to 3%. That in turn does wonders for foot traffic on the base paths. In 2022, in those 36 innings, opponents only hit 200 against him, but they had a 350 OBP. Opponents hit 180 against him this past year in his 42 innings. So a 20-point drop, but a 220 OBP. So a 20-point drop in batting average against, but an 120-point drop in OBP against.
It's clear how
That's
much it's clear how much better he got. And he's also 26 years old versus Taj Bradley, who just turned 23.
Mhm.
So it's also a time where, all right, Pepio, let's see what you got. If Bradley struggles again, I think it's going to be fine. But to your point of why I can see us both grouping them in the same is because if Taj Bradley is fantastic, which he can be,
And he wasn't last year.
I think he's going to be. I think both him and Pepio. I mean, I'm super high on the Rays this year, just like I kind of am every year because I know who they are and they consistently just continue to do it year after year. I think Pepiot's going to be great. I think Bradley's going to be great. I chose Pepiot as the X factor just because I think he can be more dominant than Bradley can this season.